Okay. You tweeted, we're not going to get ahead of our justice skis. Please, this is the show to get out over your justice skis. You said, but it looks like the DOJ criminal investigation of Trump and his corrupt associates is gearing up, per the new reporting by the New York Times. So you referring, Glenn, to the adding new prosecutors, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the important developments, but there were other even bigger developments. It's
Okay.
great that they're beefing up the staff, and that is in recognition that they're going to be bringing a lot more criminal cases. But first, the Washington Post, I think, then a follow-on piece in the New York Times reported that the Department of Justice criminal probe is expanding to include, one, the funders, the planners, and the organizers of the pre-insurrection rally on January 6th, two, the fake electors, the grand jury, the criminal probe. We're not talking about J6, the congressional committee. Criminal probe is expanding into not only the fake electors, but the Trump loyalists and lackeys who were pushing the fake elector scheme to criminally overturn the results of the election. And then I think most importantly, in that Washington Post article, they reported that, and I wrote it down, I don't want to misquote it, that they have been subpoenaing officials in President Trump's orbit, former President Trump's orbit, as part of the grand jury criminal investigation. And they've been doing it, Steph, for the last 2 months. What does that tell us? Grand jury subpoenas have been going out to Trump lackeys, and we knew nothing about it. DOJ has, in fact, been criminally investigating things up the criminal ladder to the hierarchy of the command structure of the insurrection, and we knew nothing about it, which is precisely as it should be. But, you know, every day we're asking ourselves, is DOJ criminally investigating? We know that they have been for at least 2 months, and I'm quite sure longer than that.
Okay. Because I know you had an interesting exchange with Asha Rangappa on Twitter that I wanted to ask you about. Asha tweeted, the January 6th committee's vocal frustration with DOJ does not give me confidence that Garland has been working closely with the committee and is on top of everything. And you said, I share your concerns, Asha. One possibility, because many members of Congress likely have criminal exposure, reconnaissance tour, disclosing Pelosi's whereabouts during the attack, giving aid and comfort to the insurrection, etc. DOJ needs to keep all of Congress in the dark. Explain, because you've said this, that, you know, when you were a prosecutor in D.C., that, you know, you got press about nothing's going on, and because you were tight-lipped for like 2 years or something, I think you said.
Yeah, while the media beat me up for not seeking justice in a particular case all the while, I couldn't respond because I was quietly in the grand jury for those 2 years seeking justice, and we got there, you know, but I had to just listen to and get beat up by the media accounts of me doing nothing. So I understand. And here's the thing, you know, when we saw the members of the J6 committee at the hearing where they were voting to hold Scavino and Navarro in contempt, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. We heard their frustration. They were saying, DOJ, what are you doing? You need to move out. You need to support our efforts by prosecuting people who are in contempt and then some. But then we get reporting like the next day or two, which wasn't a leak. It was an authorized leak. I call it a covert press release by the Department of Justice saying, wait a minute, we have been for months. We've been issuing grand jury subpoenas. Y'all just don't know about it. Why do they need to keep Congress in the dark, Steph? Because so many members of Congress are complicit. Not the members of the J6 committee, but, you know, every member of Congress has a staff and they talk. And so what DOJ has to do when it's investigating things like who gave reconnaissance tours, who was tweeting out Pelosi's whereabouts while they were trying to hunt her down, who gave aid and comfort to the insurrectionists, who covered it up and lied about it by saying it was just a normal tourist visit. These are members of Congress that are being investigated, I'm quite sure, by DOJ, but DOJ can't tell anybody in Congress about that.
No, that makes sense. Okay, but, you know, I was going to say, I think it's Jill Wine-Banks that sticks in my head saying she felt like we would have heard from witnesses, at least from the grand jury.
All right, here is what I am seeing as the tactical wisdom of what DOJ has been doing. Bear with me for a minute. Okay. We got to go to Team Justice Law School. So everybody's, and we're going to use Steve Bannon, you know, distasteful as he is, as the example. Everybody says, why in the world didn't the Department of Justice serve a grand jury subpoena on Steve Bannon? Why are they just letting him go and letting the J6 committee handle it. Here's why. If DOJ had dropped a grand jury subpoena on Bannon up front at the beginning of this process, he would have lawyered up. He would have invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in the grand jury, and we would not have gotten another shred of incriminating evidence out of him about his own conduct, or more importantly, about Donald Trump's conduct. But what do we now have? The J6 committee took the lead. He said, I got your subpoena right here. I'm not complying, right? So what did he do? He created evidence that he was willing to cover up Donald Trump's crimes by refusing to comply with a lawfully issued congressional subpoena. And as a result, he's indicted for 2 counts of contempt of Congress. All of that evidence is something that can be introduced against him at his own future criminal trial for being part of the conspiracy and as showing his consciousness of guilt. None of that would have existed, Steph, if the Department of Justice had dropped a grand jury subpoena on him on day one. That shows to me that it's actually tactically shrewd that DOJ has been going about this the way it has. It feels like it's too slow. It feels like public safety is at risk and democracy hangs in the balance. There is an overarching plan, and I think it's actually working out well.
Wow. Okay. By the way, I love when you speak Jersey to me. I got your subpoena right here. Okay. By the way, I have a new lawyer friend, and now that I talk to you every week, I just am throwing out phrases. Inherent contempt, consciousness of guilt. We know stuff we don't know.
Yeah.
Stare decisis.
It's a post facto.
I know. Tort. I hang out with Glenn Kirschner. And by the way, if I'd been around when they were going after you in the press, I would have defended you like a little bobcat. Okay. To quote one of my favorite Jerry Springer episodes, I would have been like, he might be your husband. He's my man. Justice will prevail. Okay, you also tweeted Judge Carter's finding by a preponderance of the evidence / more likely than not that Trump committed felony offenses is a higher evidentiary standard than the one needed to arrest and indict Trump for his crime, which requires only probable cause. It is. There has been no less than really some stunning judicial writings about all this thus far, hasn't there?
Steph, it's been a good week for justice, and we can't often say that. But when you look at Judge Carter's finding, let's go back to Team Justice Law School for 1 minute. In order to arrest and indict somebody, the evidentiary standard is probable cause. And, nobody knows precisely what probable cause is, but I can tell you, I did a deep dive into probable cause. And it basically constitutes somewhere between about 42 and 45% of the evidence tending to show a crime was committed and a certain person committed it. What Judge Carter found in his litigation in the John Eastman case is that by a preponderance of the evidence, that's 51% of the evidence, more likely than not, Donald Trump committed crimes against the United States. Steph, that's a judicial finding that there's more evidence of Donald Trump's crimes than is even necessary to arrest and indict him, which is simply probable cause. That's stunning from the federal bench. Stunning. And that's why I say it was a good week for justice.
Yeah. Well, on the bad side, you wrote a piece, just the New York prosecutor thinks Trump is guilty. Why won't the DA charge him? Can someone please check American justice for a pulse? What the actual F is going on in New York with Alvin Bragg? I mean, having read now the whole resignation letter, it just could not be clearer. Donald Trump committed the crime. We have all the evidence to indict him now. And as you were saying, I think in this piece, Glenn, the people deserve an answer. He says it's ongoing, and yet he's returning evidence to people. So what is happening in New York?
Yeah, he's killed that investigation, and that is an unsupportable decision based on the evidence and the law. What we don't know is what motivated him to kill a solid investigation into Donald Trump. That's something that I maintain needs to be aggressively investigated. Remember when Governor Cuomo got in trouble?
Yeah.
What did the Attorney General's office, Tish James, do? They investigated. They investigated misconduct by a New York government official. They should be doing the same darn thing with respect to Alvin Bragg. Plus, some great investigative journalists ought to be digging deep and hard and trying to uncover what motivated Bragg, because it's not the law or the facts. It's something else. I'm not prepared to say what, because I'm not going to accuse the man of something without having evidence.
I think many of us are so confused by the state, local, this, that. Is Letitia James going to be able to cover some of the things that Bragg should have covered? She has civil and criminal going on. Just talk to us about New York.
Here's how the breakdown works. In most states, the Attorney General's office, Tish James's office in New York, is largely a civil operation. That's why Tish James is suing the Trump organization, or going to bring suit, we believe, for civil fraud. And that's where she was trying to interview and depose Donald Trump and Don Jr. and Ivanka in that civil fraud investigation. There is a little bit of lingering ability for an attorney general like Tish James to bring some crimes, some business and financial crimes, as opposed to just bringing civil cases. And so it remains to be seen. Of course, she was working in concert with Cy Vance's office. We don't know if she's working in concert with the newly constituted New York District Attorney's office, but I do think she now needs to enter into that fray in whatever way she's lawfully authorized to enter, both to investigate Bragg, and if there are some limited crimes she has the jurisdiction to prosecute, she ought to do that too.
Yep.